Good morning and welcome to the show. I'm here with Alan Graham from Counts Real Estate. And we're going to talk about your local real estate situation and some of the charities that Counts Real Estate is involved in. Alan, welcome to the show.
Morning, Don. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for getting up early with us today.
Yeah, it's a great day.
Now, real estate has always kind of intrigued me, and a lot of people, because you see a lot of real estate shows on TV, flipping houses and all that other stuff. And then we had those go-go years of real estate when people were getting rich and a lot of people not so rich. A lot of people went broke during that time.
That's true.
What's the state of real estate nowadays?
Actually, real estate is on the comeback. We had a slow year right after the downfall. We call that the party, 2004, 5, and 6. That's
That
when
was the party, huh?
anybody could make money at real estate at that point in time. Right after that, we had the decline and the disaster, and we had the foreclosures and the short sales. And then, unfortunately, in 2010, we had a little issue here called the oil spill.
Yes.
And it created a negative impact on the market. But we're slowly on the recovery from that. Real estate over a national 50-year average usually appreciates at about 5% per year. If you bought something 40 years ago, you can take an average over 10, 20, or 30 years, and it's usually about 5% per year. I checked the statistics before I came on today, and it's going up about 10% over the last year. So we're slowly coming back, and I see the inventories coming down. That means the houses that are for sale out there are coming down.
And that's just basic economics, supply versus demand.
Price goes up as inventory comes down. We're not yet at what we call our average model for our break-even point. We've got about a 7.5 month supply right now, and typically a 5.5 month supply is national average, and so it's still a buyer's market right now based on that.
I was going to ask that too. So I guess you could call that a buyer's market.
That is correct.
Now, interest rates are still, although they're starting to inch up, they're still historically low, aren't they?
Historically, yes, they are, because I remember the times back in the early 80s when they were up at 18 and 19%. We still had people buying houses, but they required something then called a down payment. And my down payment on my first house was 10%. Unfortunately, that no doc loans, and we called them liar loans. You could say you had a job and you could get a loan, but the pendulum has swung back the other way. They've restricted loans quite a bit. Interest rates are at what they were in the 40s and the 50s today. The Feds just recently, as yesterday, made the decision to remove their chalks out of the holding that back, and we're going to see a slight increase over the next 6 months. Typically, that creates a run on the market because people say, if I don't get my house now,
I'll never get one.
I won't be able to afford it, or I'll pay more for it, or et cetera,
I remember as a young guy buying my very first house, and I was stationed in Washington State, and the interest rate was 9.5%, and people was patting me on the back saying, good job, how did you get such a low rate? Because they shot up right after that. I mean, literally a month afterwards, a friend of mine bought a house at 11%. I mean, there was double-digit interest rates back in those days, and thank goodness those days are gone. But I guess when the social engineers get their hands into it and say, hey, everybody should have a house, that's when things can go off the tracks, isn't that right?
And that's true. And in reality, everybody shouldn't have a house. There's issues of responsibility. There's issues of people making an investment. In other words, their down payment. They didn't understand that, I need to bring money to the table. And the banks are wanting them to have as much risk or as much skin in the game as the bank has. And so they get offended sometimes when do you have a down payment? Well, no, we don't have a down payment. We thought we could just buy a house like we buy a car. And that's not true.
That bespeaks a larger cultural problem, I think, that we have. And we could talk more about that after the local weather. Brought to you by the West Pittman Law Firm, westpittmanlawfirm.com. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Alan Graham from Counts Real Estate, and we're talking about the real estate in your area. And what areas are hot now, Alan? I know some are hot, some not so much.
Yeah, they say all real estate is local, and that even goes down to the individual cities that are here in Bay County. People choose their location of their homes based on generally two things. Number one, the schools for their children, or number two, a location to their work. Right. And we see that growth in Bay County in Lynn Haven. Lynn Haven is an extremely popular area because of Bay Haven, the charter school going there, and a lot of the quality of the schools that are there.
Yeah, and the public schools have a good reputation in that area too.
Public schools are great there,
Yeah.
and the people. We just had 5,000 people move in out at Tyndall with the F-22 wing that came in.
Sure.
A large majority of those people located in Lynn Haven for that particular reason, schooling, and some people just don't like to be close to work.
And it's funny, when we first got stationed down here, we bought a house in North Shore. Why? Because of schools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now the other hot location would be the beach. And it's not because of the attraction of the condos or anything like that. It is the business environment. But St. Joe's made a great investment in Pier Park out there and created a financial boom for businesses to go in. And along with those businesses come managers and assistant managers and store owners. And so, and again, it goes back to Breakfast Point, a St. Joe development that's created a school and a residential area, and that school's actually already overcrowded out there now. So the beach and Lynn Haven are the two hot areas. There are depressed areas, but those are typically the hot ones right now.
Now, what about up around the airport? There was quite a buzz when that airport first opened up that there was going to be an industrial park and maybe some, second and third order effects of housing and things like that. What's happening up there?
Well, unfortunately, everybody thinks that we get it right now. When the old airport was located where it was here in Panama City, that used to be a cow pasture back about 80 years ago, and it was about 3 or 4 miles outside of downtown Panama City.
Right.
So the fact that we've located it up there is not a negative. It's just an indication of the growth that's going to go in. St. Joe just announced that they are going to do a development on 4 times the order of the villages down in South Florida that'll be located around the airport and then west all the way to Walton County.
And that's huge. I mean,
110,000 acres is what the plan is for. It's a 50-year plan, and it's going to be a semi-retirement with community with villages and stores and medical.
And that's a very affluent demographic.
Yes.
Period. I mean,
Right.
for all businesses. I mean, you've got retirees that are going into that type of 55 and older type community living situation. They have a little disposable income.
And the thing that used to be 25 and 30 years ago when the villages was developed, you always see free golf down there. When they did the study of the retirees that are going to happen in the baby boom generation or the greatest generation coming up in the next 10 years, is they want wide open spaces and natural areas. They want activities done instead of just golf. They want fishing, walking, hiking, camping, those
Sure.
type activities.
And we've got room for all of that up there.
Right.
In the 30 seconds that we have left here before we got to run off to the next break, you're involved with Grills Gone Wild. And
Yes.
you've got another event coming up. So you and your business, and I know Rotary's deeply involved in this as well. Just give us a quick thumbnail of Grills Gone Wild and what to expect and when the
Grills Gone
event
Wild
is.
occurs the 21st and the 22nd at Gulf Coast State College. We've got 10 competitive grillers that'll be coming in, and it's Florida Barbecue Association sanctioned
I didn't even know
judges.
there was an association, but it's good to know.
Oh yeah, there's quite a few association sanctioned judges that live in this area. We ran a judges class last year, but we'll be selling over 200 Boston butts that'll be cooked by championship cooks. You'll be able to graze out there at what we call a swine tasting. Swine tasting is where
like
you
it.
pay $10 and you walk in, and you'll be able to walk up to any one of 30 griller sites and be able to just take a tasting of what they've got. We've also got the Healers that'll be playing as a blues band out there that night, and it's strictly a family-friendly organization.
Well, it sounds like a great event. Can we
Right.
just show up? Do we need to buy a ticket? How's all that work?
There's pre-sales there, but you could just show up if you want to.
Alan Graham from Counts Real Estate, thank you so much for coming on the show and getting us smart about real estate and Grills Gone Wild.
Thanks, Don.
And Pinky's up at that swine tasting. And we'll be right back after your Mad Hatter Minute.
Hi, I'm David Lovett, and this is your Mad Hatter Minute. Engine coolant, brake fluid, power steering fluid are all very important fluids that need to be changed. But the fluid that gets the least amount of respect, but is the most important that needs to be done, is the transmission fluid. Transmission fluid is a slippery liquid that lubricates all the moving parts of the internal transmission. In an automatic transmission, the fluid also acts as a coolant for the transmission. There are a variety of different fluids for automatic transmission. Shockingly, these fluids are called automatic transmission fluid. There are several different types. My best recommendation is to take the manufacturer's recommendation of what type of fluid to use in the transmission. Changing the automatic transmission fluid can be a messy process. First, you have to have access to the underbelly of the car. Secondly, you need to remove the transmission pan to gain access to the transmission filter. The transmission filter should always be replaced when changing the transmission fluid. Not changing the transmission filter is similar to changing your oil without changing the engine oil filter. You're cycling all the dirty contaminants right back into the transmission. How often should you change your transmission fluid? Well, it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer, but typically the manufacturer recommends every 30 to 60,000 miles. Check with your trusted local auto repair facility for them to give you the details. I'm David Lovett, and that has been your Mad Hatter Minute.
Hey folks, this is Joshua Brown with Mad Hatter on 23rd Street. Is your check engine light on? If it is, text MADHAT28, that's MADHAT28, to 24247, and we'll check it for free.
Welcome back to the show. It's time for Raymond James Financial to give us some advice here, and I've got Heather Noyes from Raymond James Financial to tell us about these troubling times and what that means to the markets. Welcome back to the show, Heather.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know, we were talking off camera about wars, you know, and how people get skittish in times of international strife, like World War I, World War II, and now we've got ISIS on the move, we've got Ebola, and I've never really understood the connection between world events and the markets, how they go up and down like that.
Well, the first and foremost, you want to stay focused on what your long-term goals are rather than reacting, even though the markets do react. But a lot of times the reactions that we get in the market are very short-lived. So we might have a short pullback in the market, which is recovered within, maybe a week or 2 weeks.
So it's really nothing that to worry about then. Now, if you look at, say, World War II, right? That was kind of a boom time economically for us, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. In fact, I've got a slide that I figured we could show, and it actually shows historically how the markets have performed during different times of war.
Why don't you explain some of these slides to me?
All right.
What are we looking at here?
Well, this first one right here, the very top line highlighted in blue is just the average of the market performance over time. And then the highlighted in peach or orange, whatever you want to call it, is the average returns of all of the wars. So looking at the average return of large cap stocks was 11%, small companies 13%, long-term bonds 2%, 5-year bonds 3%. Even cash was paying 3.3 back then. And then it's broken down further into World War I, Korean War, Vietnam War, and the Gulf War. And World War I is not actually listed on here, but that's one of the few where the markets actually lost money during a wartime.
So not all wars are created equal economically, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was the type of war and what our country was trying to accomplish at the time.
Right.
Like World War II was total war, and we had mobilized the whole country to support that war. So I would suppose that industry was, a beneficiary of all of those activities.
Absolutely.
Not so much with modern day wars, though, I guess.
Right. One of the factors, like looking back at '91 with Desert Storm, going into Desert Storm again, uncertainty in the markets, uncertainty in the world, period, is what causes the volatility in the markets. So leading into Desert Storm, the S&P actually dropped about 5%, and oil prices went up about 22%.
That's right.
And as soon as we
because of the region of the world it was in, everybody was worried about oil supplies. And,
Right. So once we deployed air tactics, the market jumped up about 8% within a week, and oil prices, we saw them come down about 20%, so it happened pretty rapidly. Same thing with the Iraqi war as well. In Iraq, same thing, the market leading into it dropped about 11%. Oil prices were
because people
up.
were just scared.
Yeah, didn't know what was going to happen, couldn't quantify exactly what would be, what's going to happen or what the effect would be on the U.S. or the economy. And oil prices again jumped at that point in time. As soon as the ultimatum was given to Hussein, we saw markets jump up. precipitously, and then oil prices again come back down.
So it really is tied very closely to human psychology. I mean, it really is. I mean, when people are afraid, they contract, they take their money out, they kind of circle the wagons. Yeah, but then once they see that, you know, okay, affirmative type actions are being taken to make everything okay again, then they go back to investing again.
Exactly. So that's why it's important to stay focused, you know, on the long-term goals. Now, there have been some situations, actually, in the other slide. This one shows the World War I dropping.
Okay, let's take a look at this slide. Okay.
The shaded areas are where we had recessions. The first one is World War I. You can see the stock market went down in World War I, and we had a recession at the end of that. World War II is the next slide, and again, markets went straight up, but we ended here with a recession. Korean War, we went up. Vietnam War, we went up part of the time, and then dipped down as well at the end.
Well, this is just fascinating stuff. But you know, I guess the lesson learned here is just to stay a course. It's always going to work out okay as long as America's alive. We're going to do just fine.
Absolutely.
Heather Noyes, thanks so much for those encouraging words and that market advice. Hang tough, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the show. In my never-ending search for local talent, we have found Southern Sunday, and we have them right here on the Don Arias show. And thanks so much for coming on the show, guys.
We're really happy to be here.
Yeah, what are you going to sing?
This is another one by a guy that a lot of people don't really know. His name's Trent Tomlinson. It's a ballad. It's called One Wing in the Fire.
One Wing in the Fire.
Yeah, it's a good song.
And you know, the music from guys you don't really know is usually the best.
It's a great
really
song.
is.
I think you'll like it. So.
All right, I'll take it away.
Daddy's been a back row Baptist with shared front row sin. Saturday night still on his breath. Every Sunday when he walked in, he never led the benediction. He never sang in the choir. But he's an angel with no halo and one wing in the fire. Mama lives by the Bible lives by the bed. She lied alone so many nights with scriptures in her head, praying, good Lord, just be with him. I know his faith is tired, but he's an angel with no halo and one wing in the fire. And I know he lives a little left of living right, and he's come close to going way too far a few times. I'd trade 1,000 prayers if just one prayer would come true. Lord, please believe in him like I believe in you. Daddy's always been there for me, from b-ball to touchdowns. Fix my car and fix my heart when they've been broken down. I know he calls for more forgiveness than most folks do require, but he's an angel with no halo and one wing in the fire. And I know he lives a little left of living right, and he's come close to going way too far a few times. I'd trade 1,000 prayers if just one prayer would come true. Lord, please believe in him like I believe in you. Well, I just can't imagine what heaven must be like. It's me and Mama making without Daddy by our side. Good Lord, please remember when it's time to call us higher, that he's an angel with no halo and one wing in the fire.